Welcome to the Bombshell Business Podcast, where driven women in business learn how to become more bold, brave, and unwaveringly confident. Feel empowered and challenged through inspiring stories and tell it like it is advice for business, life, and leadership. Welcome to the Bombshell Business Podcast. I'm your host, Amber Hurdle, and I am here to help edify you and teach you and live out my mission of empowerment and business mastery in hopes that I can provide some small piece of help as you journey on as a bombshell businesswoman. So let's dive right into the show today. We've got some announcements. Of course, we are still introducing the newly formed Bombshell Business Experts. We are very excited about this. I hope you've been enjoying the blog posts and everything that we've been pushing out. These are trusted friends. They are seasoned professionals, and they are giving you their best advice. We are doing a theme each quarter. This past quarter, we got started a little bit late, and so we have 2 months of it where we're really focusing on how to transition out of summer and into fall and just getting our act back together. So they are submitting blog posts. I'm doing quarterly interviews on the podcast so that you can get all of this information to help you grow your business. And of course, if you want to learn more about all of them, you can go to amberhurdle.com/bombshell business experts. And then they'll also have a page in the Bombshell Business app, which is coming out on September 1st. So the Bombshell Business app will have like the podcast, videos, all the free worksheets, a chat wall that the experts and I will be connecting with you on, courses, free and paid, and more. It's going to be everything all at your fingertips, so you have a one-stop shop. And like in my perfect world, if you have a problem in your business, I want you to be able to find the solution in this app. So that's the big picture vision. And then of course you can learn more about the app and some other things that are going on. You go to amberhurdle.com/bombshell-fall-2018-updates. And last but not least, just a reminder that you have a chance to attend a live, meaning in person, open to the public event on November 1st from 8:30 to noon at the Nelson Andrews Leadership Center in Nashville. We've joined forces to offer a Fascination Advantage Assessment Workshop where I will help you develop a clear strategy to establish and live out your personal brand. This is amazing. I love doing it. I usually go into companies or associations or conferences and do this. But Nelson Andrews Leadership Center provided the opportunity to do that there. And not only are they like super cool, it's a beautiful location. They're also really innovative and their mission, of course, is to create amazing leaders. So we join forces and we're doing this. It's a half-day workshop. You're not going to usually get this unless you are part of an organization. So if you're an entrepreneur and you have $149 to spare, and I would hope that you would have that to invest in yourself, because this is a game changer. What took me years and years and years to learn, this, you can just make some serious headway in knowing what makes you different and therefore what makes you marketable. So be sure to either check the show notes or you can go to Eventbrite and search for Your Fascination Advantage with Amber Hurdle. And you can find out all the information there. Again, hosted by the Nelson Andrews Leadership Center. Okay, it's time to give a shout out to a listener who left a rating and review on iTunes. Their username is Jaiuhugi. Jaiuhugi. Jaiuhiggy. Whoever you are, awesome name. And this person says, if you're looking for a podcast that will entertain you, teach you, and use your time efficiently, Bombshell Business is it. I have 4 children and am learning how to run a brand new business I started from the ground up. My time is extremely valuable and I have to be picky about which podcasts fill it. Amber makes my top list because I always leave with strategies I can use. She is real and feels like a close friend. Thank you, Amber. Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, I know I say this every single time, but every time you leave a rating and review, you encourage another woman to give the Bombshell Business Podcast a try. And they might need this podcast to help in their life and in their business. So kudos to you, name I can't say, for helping other women. And thank you so much for those kind words. It really does mean a lot to me. And it does help me keep going because I know what is most important to you when you put that in these ratings and reviews. So you rock. Now, in today's episode, we are going to be talking to Bombshell business expert Haley Walden to learn the exact steps to finding your voice in your writing. Haley Walden is a copywriter, editor, and author who helps businesses and authors effectively articulate their established brand stories. She has a knack for emulating voice, a keen eye for detail, and will stop at nothing to give her clients the cleanest, most concise final draft possible. And I can speak to that. That's just not a well-written bio. That is the God honest truth. Haley's helped me with my web copy, and of course, she's my go-to for my VIP clients, whom I work with one-on-one. I have a history of writing and copywriting, and there are just some things when I got to my own website, I'm like, I can't do it. Like, I can't see the forest for the trees. I can't use my superpowers on myself. And so some of those key areas, Haley really helped with. And I know that my clients adore her. She's just so great. So I know you're going to love this episode. And without further ado, let's just get to it. All right, Haley, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Amber.
So before we dive in, this whole Bombshell Business Experts thing is pretty new. So people are getting to know you, and I know we're going to dive into your extreme expertise in the writing world, but tell me a little bit about your personal life.
Well, so I live in Florence, Alabama, the northwest corner of Alabama. So about 15 minutes from Tennessee, because in the South we count our distance by minutes and not miles.
Of course.
so we're real close to like Natchez Trace Parkway, which is really nice. I am married to Grant, who is a sound engineer and musician, and we have 2 kids, Ellery and Rhett, who are 7 and 5. And I'm a big geek. And pretty much any geeky fandom, you'll find me nerding out about Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and Disney stuff. So I don't know, got a wide variety of interests and love to read, of course, and love entertainment of all types and just having fun.
Yeah. So. Definitely have the music bug in your family.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Haley is, I met her through, I guess, a social professional setting. We had dinner at Travinia Barber, if you're familiar with Priority VA and Travinia Barber. She's got a great platform. She was in Nashville, and we all had this birthday dinner with her, and that's where I met Haley. And then I started working professionally with Haley and had her work on some of my stuff, and then she started working with some of my clients. And then like everyone that I work with, we're friends, because I wouldn't know how to work with a client or a vendor or anybody that couldn't also be my friend. And so I really appreciate Haley being here for you all and being the go-to expert in copywriting for you bombshells. So that being said, let's dive in. Something that we hear a lot is you don't realize what you know. Because it's just what you do. And I think writing is that for me, because I've always written professionally. And so, when I write, I forget that my clients aren't inherently strong writers. And when I say just write like you talk, that still is not enough. So today we're going to talk about how to find your voice in writing. And Haley writes beautifully, and she writes not just in her voice, but she writes into the voice of her client, which is why I trust her when I need help with my own stuff, because I know she'll still sound like me. So we have a lot of listeners who are developing personal brands, or they're in small communities, they have brick and mortars, they're trying to create a voice for their small business, maybe their spa or salon, maybe they're a lawyer, maybe they're a coach, maybe they're a nutrition counselor or a personal trainer. And now they're being told, you have to be on social media and you have to write a blog, and you want that to be consistent to sound like the brand. Where do we even begin, Haley?
Well, a general rule of thumb when I work with entrepreneurs, this is a rule that I go by, and is that if you're developing a personal brand or trying to infuse your corporate brand or your business brand with your DNA, you want to tap into your unique voice and then incorporate that into your copywriting. And so the way that I recommend doing that is to really pay close attention to how you communicate. This is how we tell our clients who we are. It's how they get a feel for us and what it's going to be like to work with us. So to me, a lot of times I like to work one-on-one and do an interview style brain dump with my clients. And the reason that I think it's so difficult for entrepreneurs to tap into their voice is that we're not really conscious of how we sound, what we say. We're not thinking about anything like that until we're forced to.
Right.
And so, and the other big problem that clients come to me with is that they're really too close to their brand and they can't see, like, and that was sort of when we worked together, that was one of your biggest problems, was like, okay, I can write for other people, but I'm too close to this.
Yeah. I can't tell all the things. Like, I know all the things. And it's the same with branding. Like, when I work with people and we need to narrow down their brand, it's like, all these facets of you, but we really need to only focus on the part that your paying customer cares about. So how do we narrow that down? And you did that beautifully with me when we worked on my About page.
I appreciate that. And that was, that process was a collaborative effort that worked pretty much along the lines of some of these things, some of the tips that we're going to talk about today. That's largely how I developed the process that I use with most clients. And usually the way that I approach it is, I do an interview and I basically say, okay, you brain dump and I'll take notes, and then we'll work together to formulate, these phrases. And that's really, really important, to either learn how to step back far enough to pick out your own quirks and your own personality, and to be able to kind of quantify that and then infuse it into what you're writing.
So how do you, if I'm working on my own and I'm like, okay, I'm really committed to blogging, or I really want my voice to come through in my social media posts, and I'm going to do, a month's worth of posts today, that's my goal, then how would an individual do that if they're not ready to work with somebody like you?
Okay. The first thing that I would recommend doing is sit down with however you write best. Some people like a notebook, some like the computer to type, but set some time aside to do some stream of consciousness writing. And
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by stream of consciousness?
Well, writing with no filter. It's sort of like the concept of free writing, where if you put your pen to the paper, you put it down, set a timer, and don't pick it up until your timer goes off, and just write. And you could do the same thing with your keyboard typing. But talk about You would want to talk about your passion, your why for your business. Freely write about your superpowers, your brand, what you want the client to experience, and basically just dump onto the page. And when you're not filtering yourself
or worried about being perfect.
Exactly. When you're not self-editing as you go, things are going to come out that you might not think about if you are strategically planning, or if you're sitting there going, okay, what do I say next? Right. Like, you don't have to think about that in this process. You just dump. And that's writing is a great way to do that. Another thing that I would recommend doing is to record yourself speaking. Mm-hmm. That is a really good way to glean phrases and quirky things that you say, unconsciously, that you might not think about otherwise. And
so tell me a little, let's go there on that, the quirky things that you say. Like, I call them Amberisms, the things that people laugh about when I say, or when they hear something, they say, oh, that's something like Amber would say.
Yeah. The best example for that comes to mind for me is when we were working on your About page, and you were telling me a story about, I think you were telling me about how the velvet machete phrase came to be and in your brand and everything. And at one point, you quoted yourself as saying, "Do you mind if I shoot you straight?" And I was thinking, wait. This would be really good.
Yeah.
And I think that's the opener. I think that may be like at the opening of the page.
Yep. Totally.
And that was something that was just like, okay, she's a straight shooter. She's really direct. This could work,
Yeah.
So that's a good example. And that wasn't something that you previously had in your copy, from what I understand.
Yeah, because I don't think of that kind of stuff. And so I think if you are recording yourself and you're just telling stories and then you go back and you listen, then those things start to pop out at you because you're not focused on telling the story. You're focused on listening for those good nuggets that you can pull out.
Right. And this requires a little bit of discipline if you're going to listen to yourself, because a lot of people do not like to hear themselves speak. You're going to have to switch that off. If you record yourself and listen back, you can't be distracted by like, oh, I sounded stupid or something like that. You just listen back and try to glean. But if it feels too awkward to you to do it by yourself, you can get somebody to help you do it. Have a friend or a colleague maybe record you and let you do a verbal brain dump about the business and the work.
Yeah.
And, they can ask the leading questions, or they can prompt you if you're leaving something out. But the main thing to remember is that you can filter things later. Mm-hmm. This is not a polished product. This is strictly a brainstorm.
This is finding your words, finding the way that you say things, finding the patterns that you have. And two things. One, I just wanted, maybe three things. Just kidding. The first thing is, if I can podcast and I have to listen to my voice, like, you could totally do this and nobody's listening except for you. So that's my Velvet Machete get over it moment. And the other thing is, maybe, and I don't know, this is your process, but for me, sometimes it's easier for me to think about questions that a person can ask me. Oftentimes I'll joke with my husband. I'm like, I need somebody to do my process on me. And he's like, well, just do it on you. And I'm like, oh yeah. So having those questions in advance will help you. Like you saying, where did the Velvet Machete come from? And then I started telling you, the different pieces of that and everything. And maybe you don't know what those questions are, but even if you ask basic questions, things will evolve from that.
They will. And you can kind of follow that trail a little bit. One thing kind of leads to another. And if you go back and listen to yourself, you can always, you can add to. You'd say, oh, I've left this out. Well, open your recorder and make another one,
Yeah.
But, and two, if you are a public speaker, you could go back and listen to speaking engagements that you have participated in the past, a talk or an interview or anything like that. It's all fair game because you're going to pick things out. And this process, when I take a client through it, it is very, very casual. And I even had one person to say, when I turned over the final draft of their website copy, they said, wow, this is just like you pulled words right out of my brain. And I'm like, yeah, I did.
But that's the beauty of it. And even when I go through, like when I do the VIP brand retreats here in Nashville, that's what I do to get some of their, like their brand promise. And I just let them talk, and then I pull out the nuggets that I think are relevant. I read it back to them, and they're like, how did you do that? I'm like, well, I literally took your words, so you kind of did it. You just didn't know how to synthesize it. That's the only difference. So
exactly.
I remembered the third thing that I didn't mention, and you touched on the recorder. I just wanted to be clear, like, you don't have to have fancy schmancy equipment. Like, most cell phones have a recorder on it. So you just, like voice notes on iPhone, I use that all the time. And you can like email it to yourself or just leave it on your phone or whatever. So no equipment is needed. This is what you already have.
Yeah, this is super easy.
But once you get those nuggets and you have your voice, what do you do next?
Well, after that, you would want to start putting together a draft of your copy, whether you are writing your own website or blog post. And then it's never a bad idea to ask a colleague or a mentor to give you a little input on that draft. And you could ask the person to let you know, does this copy sound like me? Why does it or why doesn't it? What can I tweak to make it stronger, to make it sound more like my brand? And do you see something that I'm missing that I need to incorporate? And this is great because when you ask someone who works in your space to look at it, they can spot the holes. It's great to have a friend help you with the interview portion, but a lot of times, like if your friend doesn't do the kind of work that you do, they may not see what's missing. But that would be a great way to start a process of sort of refining and revising what you've put together, is to have that mentor or colleague help you out with it.
Yeah. So this all goes back to me hammering home to you bombshells. Like, you've got to have a network. You cannot do this on your own. You cannot do business on your own. You cannot do life on your own. You cannot raise your children on your own. You cannot get through being a married person on your own. You need support. You need community. And if you don't have people who are peers in your industry, you need to get out there and find them. And whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, I mean, Haley, I guess you're an, what is it, ambivert? What do they call it now? Like the in-between one?
Ambivert? Yeah.
I mean, is that right? Or how would you classify yourself?
I classify myself as an ambivert because I don't follow all the introvert rules all the time.
Yeah.
In some situations, I'm extroverted, so.
Yeah. But the thing that I always tell Haley is she is an expert networker. Like, not in a cheesy way. Like, she just naturally forms relationships and you naturally want to be a part of her world. And she's not a raging extrovert. So when you're, I know we're talking about copywriting, but I love to hammer this home because a lot of people like to get in their desks and behind their computers and, they're the greatest keyboard warriors. But if you're not getting belly to belly with people, if you're not getting on video conference calls and just getting to know people, then who are you going to have help you get better? And this is one of those areas where you can do it in a silo or in a vacuum, but the impact won't be the same if you don't follow Haley's advice and have somebody at a peer level say, this doesn't click with me. Because better your peer who gets what you do than a customer who's turned off by it, right?
Right. Catch it early. And it's, the networking thing, when you told me that you felt like I was an expert networker, I was like, man, I feel so socially awkward when I meet people. But the thing about it is, it's really, if you do not overcomplicate it, it's really, really easy to connect with people. And in the case of, how you and I met, that was based on, number one, knowing that Travinia was going to be in town. I used to work as a VA for her, and I had never met her in person. So I live about 2.5 hours south of Nashville, and I jumped in the car and I went because I thought, this is a great opportunity to meet her in person, because face-to-face meetings are just wonderful, especially when you work remotely like so many of us do. But also it was like, well, this is a birthday party for her. Who else could I possibly meet? I may meet somebody else that I click with and jive with. And I came away with, several friends from that experience. And you and I think we connected first over both being gluten-free. Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't take very much.
Like soul sisters at the dinner table.
I know. we have the same menu. But, you basically just find something. It can just be one thing that you have in common and get a conversation going, because it snowballs from there if you'll let it.
Yeah, totally true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you have done the stream of conscious writing, or maybe you've recorded yourself telling stories, you've interviewed yourself, maybe your friend has interviewed you. So now you have all this good, juicy stuff that you can start highlighting and pull phrases out and get an idea of what it is that you sound like in person, so that you can sound that way in your copy. Whether it's your website copy, again, it could be your about page, it could be a sales page, it could be your social media. I mean, we have to write all the time. Like, if you're not in the game of that, then you're already behind. So it's really important nowadays. And then you get somebody like a peer, somebody in your industry, or somebody at least who understands who your customer is, to take a look at it. And then, do you do this every time, or how, this is a long game, right? So what's your suggestion for staying in a rhythm or staying true to that voice?
Well, it is a long game. And at a certain point when you're starting, you've got to ship it. So you do want to kind of go over it, make sure that you're comfortable with it, make sure that you're getting some solid feedback, that, okay, this looks good. Ship it, post it online. This thing is a process. Finding and cultivating your voice is an ongoing process. And this is something that I've learned, building my own business and working with my own voice through my website. I've revised it several times already. It's been live for maybe a year. And you just go back and you'll have little light bulb moments every once in a while, and you'll go, maybe I should tweak that. Or maybe it's time for me to change this up a little bit. The thing about it is, don't put too much pressure on yourself to nail everything down 100% right out of the gate.
Right.
That's not how this works.
No.
This is a work in progress. Being a business owner is a work in progress. Being a personal brand is too. And so you've got to remember that you have time, and you have time to continually develop your voice and your brand. There's a reason people rebrand. We refresh, we rebrand periodically, we change things up. And we do that because we can, and we have the freedom to do that. So just remember, this is long term. It doesn't have to be exact right now, because chances are in a year you will have hit on something that you feel works better for you than what you get when you first start.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think about my own brand from the day that I began, because you don't know what you don't know until now, where I'm really clear, and then things continue to evolve. And so you have to adapt with that. So, I mean, I feel like it's important to go back to your about page and your sales page and revisit it every few months and say, okay, is this all still accurate? Does this still sound like me? Does this still appeal to the customer who's doing business with me right now? Because when you cast a wide net, and you almost have to when you're first starting, and then you start to learn more and more about your customer and what appeals to them and what triggers them and what emotional triggers purchasing decisions, or what emotionally triggers their purchasing decisions. And then like what makes you feel authentic, that what makes you feel like I'm really being seen as me, or I'm really being seen as the business owner that I am, or the brand that we are as a work family. And you just kind of keep niching and getting more and more clear. But like, I used to get so stressed out about that just because I have a freaking PR degree, like it's like, I should know this. Like, I do it for other people. Why can't I do it for myself? And I can't even imagine how you feel, Haley. Oh my gosh.
It's definitely a work in progress. I need to revisit my own copy, but I've tweaked that site several times in the past year. And two, like you talk about when you first start, you cast a really wide net. But it kind of goes in both directions. You learn about what your colleagues, not colleagues, brain fart. This is why we have editing. You learn about what your clients want, what makes them happy. You tweak stuff for them, but you also, for yourself, you get clearer and clearer on what kind of clients you want to attract and what kind of customers you want to attract. And you also have to tweak based on that. And that's what I have found is just over time narrowing or being more specific about the clients that I look for, and your copy has to follow.
Yeah, it has to be attractive just like everything else. Like, I'm mostly about brand messaging. So you write the story and then you put the pictures in the storybook. And so you can't do all of the, people are like, I need a new website and a logo. And I'm like, awesome. Tell me about your brand. And they can't articulate that in a compelling way. So it's like, okay, let's back up. Let's figure out your brand messaging. Then we can start tackling the visual brand side of things. And then you have to live that brand and you have to keep that brand fresh. And that is where the content marketing and social media and all of that stuff comes in. So it's just it's an ever evolving thing. And, Haley, back me up on this. If it's not perfect, nobody's going to come foreclose on your house, right?
That's true.
Nobody's going to come and like kidnap your husband, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So like everybody take a deep breath and then go through this process. Let us know in the app, get in there on the message board and let us know what's working and what's not working for you, and ask questions, and we'll be in there answering away and hopefully helping you craft that voice, and also just to help encourage you to stick with it. And you just like anything, you're going to get better as you go, and the more you do it, the better off you're going to be. And if you absolutely hate it, if you keep doing it long enough and you start building a great business, or you start increasing your existing business because you're being more active in content marketing and email marketing and, social media, that sort of thing, then you can like hire a Haley. And then that's like ideal for people who can't stand writing, right? So just do it as everything. So Haley, where can we find more about you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I think that's author Haley Walden, and Instagram author Haley Walden, Twitter Haley Dub, HALEYDUB, and my website is HaleyWalden.com.
Super easy. And of course, all of that will be in the show notes, and then she will also be listed in the Bombshell Business app. Under the Bombshell Business Experts section. So it's all right there in the palm of your hand, which we are so excited about. So make sure that you download that link, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks for being with us, Haley.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Bombshell Business Podcast. Visit amberhurdle.com for more resources like show notes, and check out thebombshellbusinesswoman.com to grab my book and download the free bonuses.